Welcome to Keep the Line Moving, the podcast where leadership meets life and inspiration. Here we spotlight extraordinary leaders. We're diving deep into how they inspire, motivate, and lead with strategy and empathy to achieve the extraordinary. Here we go. Episode 132 of the podcast, and today we're talking about marketing, sports marketing to be specific, the art and science of a brand connecting to its community or a franchise team connecting to its fan base. We go in depth in this conversation with our guest, Elisa Padilla. What a career she has had. She opened up the Barclays Center, right? Taking the New Jersey Nets into Brooklyn. She will take us behind the scenes of that experience, as well as her entire career, where she has had stops at the Islanders, Apple, Miami Marlins, and most recently, the New York Red Bulls, where they went to the MLS Cup last season, taking on the LA Galaxy. Elisa will take us behind the scenes to all of this. She has her own company called Kick It by EP. She started that in 2020, a platform built to inspire, educate, and pay it forward through authentic storytelling. She has lunchtime conversations. She'll tell us about that and so much more. We were introduced by our mutual friend, the legend, Fred Mangione. I'm so thankful Freddie introduced us. And you'll see why too here on this conversation with Elisa Padilla. All right, Elisa, you know what I love about life, Elisa, is this. You get to meet people that you really like and identify with, right? You match energy and you match, interests and things of that nature. Guess what? You're in that category, my friend. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here with you, and I feel exactly the same way. So
I love it. We're off to a great start. Let's go back.
Okay.
What were you like getting a bachelor's degree in communications at Centenary University back in the day?
Oh my goodness. I was definitely a bookworm. I was really focused on making sure that I had great grades. I was just trying to learn everything there was about media because I really, back then, I felt that if I had the right knowledge and I had the right and matched up my skill set, I was going to be able to get a job right out of college.
And that was all of our goals, right, back then. And I teach nowadays, and that's everyone's goal, is to get that job right out of school. So it's seamless, right? You're so used to, all those years going from, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and then you just think, right, seamless. So how was it for you in those early years? Did you get something right out of Centenary? Did you go to graduate school? What was the timeline?
Yep. So the timeline was I graduated. I did an internship with, and again, I'm probably going to date myself, but that's okay, with Virginia Slims Championships. And their offices were at Madison Square Garden. So it was a great opportunity for me because I developed a very, very nice relationship with the HR person. And she and I kept in touch. And after that internship was over, there was an opportunity to work in the boxing department at Madison Square Garden. I was a freelancer. Back then they were called temps, but I was a temp. And Chris, all I was doing was literally stuffing media kits. And I did that for about 5 weeks. Another opportunity came up for additional temp work at the New York Rangers. It was great because it kept me in the building. And then I was there for about 9 weeks, and an entry-level position came up at the New York Knicks. And, this woman in HR said, look, there's an opportunity here. Let me give you an opportunity if you want to put your name in the ring. And I was like, absolutely. And I got the job, and that was my very first job. So it took me probably I started with them in April. So it was probably about a year, but in leading up to that opportunity, I was still in the mix because I was doing temp work, which is, it was great.
You made such a great point in that you were in the building.
Yeah.
And you were creating relationships and you were meeting people and you were probably walking around or grabbing coffee, right? And seeing like, hey, you probably didn't even know it consciously, but subconsciously you're like, if I'm here, opportunity can find me. And that's exactly what the HR lady said, pretty much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Chris, it wasn't until I was probably about 3 years into my position that I then decided that I was going to pursue a master's degree in marketing. And so I had been working 4 years, and then I went back to school and earned my MBA in marketing part-time.
So, okay, so let's go back to this relationship part. So then you were off, right? You were off and running. You had your foundation, you're getting an advanced degree at a really early age. So how did you start to see the world of sports marketing back then? What was going on that you really gravitated towards and really started to enjoy? Because then we'll get into the core of your journey, which is really, really impressive.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because my very first boss really took me under her wing and taught me everything there was about marketing. So, everything from the advertising part of it, the creative, how that all fit together, how the games were produced, right? The entertainment, the crowd psychology. So, it was really, really great. And then when I started business school, that's where, Chris, I really started to understand how all the business functions worked together, right? So it wasn't only marketing, right? There was legal, there's finance, there's, sponsorship. And that's when I really started to understand the bigger picture. And I made the conscious decision. I was probably in my second year of business school, and I made the decision that I really wanted to be a diversified marketer. That realization of really understanding that the world of marketing, and specifically sports marketing, was more than just what I was doing. I think that's really what was a push for me to make all the decisions that I made along my career trajectory.
Can I assume that you enjoyed the actual functioning, right, of the media and the in-game and the branding and all of that, but you also enjoy the people behind the decision making? Is that safe to say? And then unifying everybody to see a common vision. Is my hypothesis accurate?
Correct. 1,000% accurate, Chris. So for me, it was twofold, right? It was getting to know the people, right? But also understanding what their roles were, because that's equally as important, right? And one of the things that I learned very early on was that I never wanted to ask anyone to do something that I wouldn't do myself, or that I didn't understand myself.
Oh my God, do you understand how much wisdom there is right there that you just shared with everybody? Which is that either you have not done the thing you're going to ask somebody to do, or have not learned about the thing. I'm just oversimplifying it,
Yeah.
but the thing that you're going to ask somebody to do. Elisa, that's so in as you progressed in your career, did you teach others on your teams at all these wonderful places? Barclays Center, the Nets, the Islanders, Apple, the Marlins, the Red Bulls. Did you teach people that concept? Because that's so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, and I think that, when I started to manage people, right, it was really about teaching them, but also learning from them, right? Because when you get to a point in your career where you have a big team, you're building a team, I think it's really important to understand that the learning and the partnership is a two-way street, right? It's not, well, I'm in this position, so it's my way. No, it's not that way. It's really not. It's a two-way street in terms of, okay, I'm going to teach you. And especially now, Chris, 2 decades later, and the world of marketing has really changed. And I think that the future marketing leaders are really, they've grown up very differently than the way that I grew up, right? So the generation of today was raised with a phone in their hand. So there's so much that, we're learning from them today. And again, not to belabor the point, but it's a two-way street for sure.
Oh no, 100%. My son's 17 and he teaches me about all the trends that are going on,
Yeah.
when he wants to engage with me at all, but you know how that goes. But no, but even that, like, there's different generations, right? That have
Yeah.
the relationship with technology is evolving. And to your great point, we are learning from them. We
Yeah.
did not grow up with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it takes an open mind. So let's hit that, Elisa. How much you obviously have an incredible thirst for learning, which you've said a couple of times, but you also have an open mind, which is, right in the family room, right, of
Yeah.
learning. But talk about that importance, about different ways of marketing and how it has changed over the last, oh my gosh, it changed the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But in the course of your career, how you have been open minded to how it has evolved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that having an open mind, Chris, is really important, right? And I think that there are things that, look, I was trained in this industry as a traditional marketer, right? It wasn't until the mobile phone became the third screen. That's when marketing turned upside down, because it was really, you had to start thinking digitally first. And then the next wave was when social media was introduced, right? When Facebook came along, and it was like, okay, well, what is this? And how are we building communities online versus communities just in an arena, right? So that was the whole nother shift, because at that point it was like, okay, how is your brand showing up and being community centric? And then content became even more important, right? So I think that's how it's evolved, Chris. And I think that for me, you know, from a social media perspective, I'm still learning, again, still learning from the now experts, right, that have grown up with social media. And I think it's going to continue to evolve, because consumer behavior is also evolving, right? So when you couple the social media, the changing of consumer behavior, and then data, that's all a lot to unpack. And from a marketing perspective, data should always help drive your decisions.
What about emotion? So you have right? You have data. As you know, Elisa, key marketing in sports franchises taps into the emotion of the fan and that connection between the players, the coaches, the front office, potentially, and the brand itself. Right. And think about us as consumers, right? We as people, right? Not a specific demographic, just a human being. You buy with a brand you associate with. So my question to you is, with all the fracture, right, of all the different access points as a fan, and let's stick to sports marketing, right? Our topic together here today. How can you generate emotion with all of it? I'm just going broad on you right there. That's a tough
Yeah,
question, but I
yeah.
think you can handle it. Like, so how do we generate emotion with so many opportunities to engage?
I think, you know what, Chris, it's all about storytelling. And my philosophy when it comes to sports marketing, and this is like a great layup, because for me, it's about evoke emotion to drive action to get share of wallet. Because in sports marketing, what are we selling? We're selling an experience, right? We're selling an experience that a consumer is going to witness without knowing the outcome, right? So, and I think that from the marketers, for the sports marketers that are really, number one, identifying from a brand perspective what the team's brand stands for, right? What the mission statement is of the team, and then taking that and creating stories around that to ignite emotion in fans or potential fans. I think that's the formula, right? And once you evoke that emotion, you're going the action that you want to drive. It's either, obviously, ultimately it's about butts and seats, right? But it's like, you want your potential fans to follow you on social media, you want them to visit your website, you want them to purchase your merchandise, you want them to tune in to your games, right? So there's an entire ecosystem that if you evoke emotion, you're going to drive the action. And ultimately, you're going to get the consumer to log on to whether it's Ticketmaster, SeatGeek, whatever ticketing platform, to purchase a ticket to witness and consume your brand live.
So that gets me to a mutual background that you and I have, which is Major League Baseball, right? You at the Miami Marlins, me at the San Francisco Giants. And the reason I bring up baseball is because the season is so long, right? And so sometimes, unfortunately, you have a team that is out of contention in August, and you still have the month of August to play in September, to your great point. So why would a fan come out to the ballpark to witness a team that's out of it? And it goes to exactly what you said, telling stories on players they can watch. But by uncovering the experience of those individuals and telling those stories, to your point, you will put butts in the seats, right? And it's mutually beneficial to the organization, to the players, to everyone in the community, if that's the case. Do you remember your days at the Marlins and having those realities come to your desk, per se?
Yes, absolutely. And I also think, Chris, so uncovering the player stories is key, critical. And I also think that the other part of that is really the experience at the ballpark. I remember, the way that we approached telling the story of the experience, right? So it was, okay, you know what? You're going to buy a ticket to the game, but you know what? Pre-game, you're going to be able to come to this event and you're going to be able to, taste a flight of beers. That was an example, right? Or we had Kids Day where the kids would be able to, run the bases. So it was really about the experience. And then also, I don't think that a lot of teams do this enough. I think that the culinary story of the experience at a game is critical. I personally love to eat, right? So, and for me, whether I go to a concert or a sporting event, what I'm going to eat is important, right? Because that's part of the experience. And one of the other things from a storytelling perspective, how it ties into the culinary experience, is that I believe that when you are telling the team's story, you have to make sure that you're activating your consumer senses, right? So what are they seeing? What are they tasting? What are they smelling? All those things are really, really important.
Elisa, I love this. You said consumer senses.
Yeah.
And you brought up food, culinary, right? And when you walk into a ballpark or an arena or a stadium, it's all part of it. You smell the beer, the popcorn. In San Francisco, we had the garlic fries. That was part of the experience. That needs to be enhanced and talked about. All right. So, okay. So you start rolling. Now we're going back to your career. So you start rolling. You're at Barclays Center, the Brooklyn Nets, the Islanders. When you think back, and you still have so much to do in your career, but what's been the highlight? What has been something that you just think, you know what? I learned so much. I worked with incredible people. That was amazing.
When I think about everything that I've done to date, the thing that evokes my emotion is that I was part of the team that moved the Nets from New Jersey to Brooklyn. And then I was also part of the team that opened up Barclays Center. And that team, no matter where everybody is today, I think that we're all part of a really special club, because you don't get to do that. You don't get to do those two things at the same time. I really feel like those 7 years, I got a PhD because I was literally living it. And I was learning so much, and everything was, every day was different. But from a sports marketing perspective, it was really understanding the psychology of going into a new geographic location with a place like Brooklyn that hadn't had a team back then. When we launched the Nets, the Brooklyn Knights hadn't had a team for 43 years, because it had been the same year that it was 43 years that the Dodgers had left Brooklyn to go to LA. So understanding the psychology of Brooklyn Knights, understanding that we only had one chance to make the first impression. And if we screwed it up, we were dead in the water. So it's all those things that, I mean, that was a really, really special time.
So that gives us a chance to bring up our mutual friend, the great Fred Mangione, who
Yeah, yeah,
introduced us, who's
yeah,
just an amazing executive,
yeah.
amazing person. I can go on and do a whole podcast on Freddie.
So can I.
Right? I've heard the story about the going into Brooklyn, and oh my gosh, he tells it exactly like you do, which is you all learn so much, you work together, you'll always be linked and have
Yeah,
that bond. I love listening to Fred. He's spoken in my classes. I mean, obviously, he's a very close
yeah.
friend. Here's what I would ask you, which you brought up right now, which I think is really interesting. To the credit of Brooklyn, the borough, right? Which is they had lost the Dodgers in 1958 when the Dodgers and Giants moved out west. So what were they? What was? I know you can't generalize an entire population of this gigantic fan base, but what was it like when the Nets were rumored to come into Brooklyn, and then it became reality, and then you open up Barclays? What was that like for those residents, Elisa?
Yeah, I think, look, I think that we had data that showed us, or that informed us rather, that Brooklyn Knights were starving for a team to call their own. And so, from the team perspective, working alongside Fred and working alongside our CEO and our agency partners, right, we knew it's like, okay, we know that there's a huge, huge opportunity here. On the other side of that, Chris, though, on the arena side, we knew, look, Barclays Center is built in the middle of Fort Greene. It's a neighborhood. So there were a lot of people weren't happy because the arena was going to disrupt the neighborhood. However, on the flip side of that, the fact that the arena brought so many jobs to residents, that was it was a huge win. So I think that those opportunities, Chris, really helped the project turn the corner, because by the time Barclays Center opened with 8 sold out Jay-Z shows, it was like we were part of the fabric of the community by then, right? And I think that opening night of the Nets was, I mean, that happened. Superstorm Sandy happened that year, and it was unfortunate. However, opening night still happened, and I think that the way that the team had cultivated all the relationships prior to arriving into the borough really, really helped that.
You're doing some projects, you're consulting, and you're seeing all the different areas of the world of sports marketing. But your most recent experience was with the New York Red Bulls.
Yes.
What was that? My gosh, the 2024 season, unbelievable. Could you take us back, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I joined the Red Bulls at the end of the summer in 2023, it was a really, really exciting time for soccer. The Apple deal had just been announced. Messi, had signed with the league, and it was a really incredible time. And, I went in and I was really, really excited. It's a great organization, and, building a team that was really, really exciting, and, putting a team together, and then reimagining the in-game experience, right? So really elevating what the experience was going to be from street to seat, and especially, when people got there, what they were going to experience. It really became a show. The launch of the New York Red Bulls first ever mascot, that was an amazing process because I got to work with incredible people. And of course, in anyone who works in sports marketing knows that you can control everything. What you can't control is what happens on the pitch. So, summer of 2024, the team wasn't, where it was at the beginning of the season, but everything trended in the right way towards the end of the season, and we made it to the MLS Cup, and that was amazing. And we were able to really celebrate the moment And, the entire organization flew to LA, and we were there for the game. And it was gut wrenching. The team played an incredible match, and it wasn't our day. It wasn't, it was their day to win again. And MLS put on a tremendous, beautiful show for the fans. And it was really, really an exciting time. And I still think, in 2024, MLS as a league really, really grew their fan base. And I think that leading up to World Cup 2026, I think that MLS is going to see another growth spurt, if you will. And I think that, hopefully by the end of 2026, they'll be, in the top 4. But yeah, it was an amazing experience.
Okay. Are you ready for all-star moments?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. We will get to all-star moments in just a second. To grow as a leader, you must make intentional choices about how you want to show up for yourself and your team. Are you ready to grow your leadership? The Gargano Leadership Group offers expert coaching, consulting, and workshops rooted in our 4 leadership pillars: curiosity, alignment, optimism, and self-awareness. Leadership starts with forging authentic connections, communicating your values, leading with energy and enthusiasm, and truly understanding yourself. Visit garganoleadership.com to get started with us today. Back to the show. All right, so you alluded to it, so I'm going to follow up with a question. At a game, what do you like to eat and drink to make yourself feel comfortable as a fan at the game?
Well, Chris, chicken fingers and French fries. I mean, that's just like the staple, right? And it's just like along with a Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up with that. Where have you had the best version of that meal throughout your career?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have to say that in 2023, I was at Prudential Center, and they had just introduced their new chicken fingers and French fries. And I have to say that was probably the best chicken fingers and French fries that I've ever had.
Your favorite type of music?
Oh my goodness. Definitely salsa. I'm definitely a salsa girl for sure.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So your favorite artist of all time?
Mark Anthony, hands down. That's my man.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. In today's sports world, who markets really well?
I think that TNT has done an incredible job with their NBA show. And I know that, that whole thing is, going away or whatever, but the chemistry between, Shaq and Ernie, it's just like they're their own show. And then when you have Charles Barkley in the mix, right? It's just like, and the fact that now Charles Barkley, like I'm seeing him in like all these other commercials. It's like, okay, you know what? These guys are doing it. TNT has done it right with this franchise. And it's just sad that, it's not going to be on for much longer.
Okay. Now I want you to tell everybody about Kick It by EP, which started in 2020.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Chris. So Kick It by EP is my personal brand, and it is a platform rooted in inspiring, educating, and paying it forward by telling authentic stories. So it's it has multiple layers of content development, and the primary is an IG live that I do every Monday at noon for 20 minutes. So it's snackable content where I interview someone and they share their story, their career trajectory, and really provide career insights. And the reason that this is so important to me is because I really believe in giving back. And I really believe that it's important for people to hear other people's stories, to know that if you want to work in sports marketing, you don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be a marketer, right? You could do sales. You could do legal work. You can be an accountant. You can do graphic design, right? You can work on the technical side of the sport. There are so many jobs and opportunities that I think that people, I think that paying it forward by sharing other people's stories and educating folks, I think that that's really important.
Oh, there we go. There's the mic drop right there. Elisa, I love it. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much. Such a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It has been a lot of fun. I'm glad that we connected and that we did this. So thank you.
And we thank Elisa very much for being on the show. I have a couple of takeaways from this conversation. Number one, and I'm paraphrasing, Elisa said, emotion drives action, which leads to dollars spent, right? Or time spent. We all have a choice with our entertainment dollars. Where will we spend them? Well, if you have the emotion through the storytelling, which connects you to your team, if you're a Boston Red Sox fan or a New York Liberty fan, or the Knicks or the 49ers, or pick a team, the Detroit Tigers, whatever that team is, you're emotionally invested in them, which then leads through storytelling and learning about your team or watching them nightly or whenever it is that they play, you will choose to spend those dollars on who you're connected with and have been most likely for many years. And then the bond, she said, another takeaway here that she has with those folks that opened up the Barclays Center. Yes, they did great work. Yes, they worked many hours, but they will be bonded forever through going through that emotional experience of going into the Barclays Center for the first time and seeing those fans take to that situation in that community with that team. And lastly here, I'll leave you with a quote that is on Elisa's website. And it says the following, quote, "If you can touch one person and make a difference, you have done good. Be the goodness that you want to be in the world." I thought that was a perfect ending to today's podcast. Have a great week, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Take care. Give us a like. Connect us. Write a review. Do what it is that makes you happy to be part of this listening and viewing community. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time on Keep the Line Moving. Thanks for tuning in to Keep the Line Moving. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Most importantly, share this podcast with your friends, family, and coworkers. It means the world to us. If you have a guest recommendation, visit our website at garganoleadership.com, where you'll also find all our archived episodes. For our marketing coordinator and the producer of this podcast, Savin Narwhal, I'm Chris Gargano. Have a fantastic week, everybody.